Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and today we are looking at an expanded deck. It's going to be a Seismitoad variant that uses the bat line in here as well to increase our damage. It's a pretty good deck. It's been doing well recently in Standard, so I think it's more of an up-and-comer. It's probably in the top 5 decks right now, and it's pretty simple, not much to get your head around. It's anything paired with Toad really is going to be decent, so we're using the bats here to increase our damage to help out against stuff like vespiquen and to have better damage overall, combining it with laser so that we can get things dying coming back into our turn so that we can preserve our lasers a bit better, and a few other things like that. So let's jump into the deck. First of all, we have 3 Seismitoad EX. We all know what this guy's all about. Quaking Punch for just a DCE. Does 30 and your opponent can't play any items. In Expanded, there's a lot of decks that are very item focused. Anything using an Archie or a Maxi engine normally has, 4 ofs of Compressor, VS Seeker, Ultra Ball, Trainer's Mail, sometimes even stuff like Acrobike. So we want to really shut off those sorts of decks, make it so that they can't get the Archies or Maxis after their first turn, of course, because we can't punch them until, unless we're going second, but then they've already had a turn to play their stuff. So if they miss the Archie or Maxi, they're pretty much not going to get it for the rest of the game unless they get really lucky with their hands somehow. So Quaking Punch is great for that. And it's also going to try and make it harder for other decks to set up. Definitely stuff like vespiquen Flareon. We can't win straight up on prize trade, but we can try and slow down their setup, make it more awkward for them to stream attackers so that we can at some points just not get hit in the face at all and then overpower them with bat drops and stuff like that. So that's the whole point of the deck. There's a few threats to Seismitoad, of course. Everyone's trying to counter it. Like vespiquen is one of the biggest issues because of that grass weakness that we have. Obviously, Yveltal as well stacks up a lot of energy and starts hitting the Toad for big damage. So that's partly the reason why we have bats to sort of support it so that we can keep up with these sorts of decks. It's worth noting that we can actually use the second attack of Seismitoad. It's not often that we do have the ability to do so, but we do play 3 waters in here, so for the last Toad of the game, you might want to start stacking water energies onto it so that we can try and do a grenade hammer and take the last 2 prizes more quickly than the opponent was maybe expecting, because with Muscle Band plus a Crobat drop we can kill EXs, which is pretty awesome. Doing the 30 to 2 of our own Pokemon, like I say, this is the finisher of the game. Like, we're Quaking Punching all game until we can finish the game with a grenade hammer, so the 30 damage to your own dudes, that doesn't matter at all because we would have won the game by then. So let's look at these bats. It's great in Expanded because we can use Free Flight Zubat. This is really nice. And then we have the Sneaky and Surprise Bites. Sneaky Bites combining 2 of them can kill Combees, which is huge, trying to deal with the biggest issue that Toad has, really. So that's really nice. And we have the Surprise Bite as well for extra counters, which is really cool. It can deal with stuff like Feebas, it can deal with Joltix, because Night March is still around. It's not really seeing too much success in Expanded, but it is still showing up here and there, so being able to deal with Joltix and such is quite nice to keep us keep us in the prize race, so that's pretty good. And in general, just the 3 extra counters combining with Laser and Muscle Band, we can be easily 2-shotting stuff, so that's really awesome. So a 3-3-3 line. We're going to be respamming these with Super Scoop Ups and AZ as well, so often get a lot of value out of these dudes. It's going to help us in mirror matches as well against stuff like Toadtina. Obviously, before Giratina can get set up, because we do sort of struggle against Giratina because we are so reliant on DC, as we all know. But we can use bats to try and get early damage on the Giratina, and then maybe come in and sweep with one of these other attackers that I'll mention in a moment. So they're pretty nice at helping out against Giratina because they have 130 HP, so they need to have Muscle Band Giovanni to one-shot Crobat, and then we'll keep bouncing between them with Super Scoop Ups, so we can actually sort of get around Giratina in a really weird way, which is good. And then we also have the bat drops to deal with Toads in mirror matches where, like, lasers aren't working, Muscle Bands aren't working, but we can still be doing additional damage with bat drops, so that's nice. We have 1 Mewtwo EX in here. This is mainly to help us out against Keldeo Stoice, because we need to have an instant response to Keldeo, otherwise it will run through us in 3 turns. So the idea is to use X-Ball if they are able to establish a good old Keldeo with a bunch of energy, so it can knock out an EX. Will X-Ball respond and then either hit them with an N or a Ghetsis or something of the sort to try and swing it back into our favour a little bit. It's not often that you use Mewtwo, but it's kind of nice. It's decent enough in mirrors as well, so it's good to be aware of. We also have Dedenne for a very similar reason. Energy Short can do a good shift against Keldeos, especially with additional backdrops. We can actually get one-shot sometimes, which is crazy. But it's also for Yveltal mainly because of our typing. Energy Short doing a lot of good numbers against Yveltal because often they go for Evil Ball rather than Y Cyclone against Seismitoad decks because we have so much healing with the Super Scoop Ups and we have AZ as well. So if they want to go down the Y Cyclone route, we can try and deny them with these Super Scoop Ups. But if they go for the Evil Ball route to try and get a big knockout, we can punish them with Dedenne. So that's really awesome. We also actually have the entrainment attack. I think I've used it like once. Just like if you happen to start Dedenne, like you may as well use this attack to get more bats into play. It's actually helped me out against a Night March deck, so you know, be aware of it, I guess. We have Jirachi EX, one of Stellar Guidance is amazing. Going first is such an advantage in Expanded, as we all know, because we can pull out these sorts of supporters like Ghetsis on the very first turn to really disrupt our opponent and make it difficult for them to play. So we want to have Jirachi to be able to pull out these one-offs that can harm our opponent in the very first turn. So one Jirachi and one Shaymin. I know that there's some decks just playing two Shaymin, but I think, you know, if you're going to play the cheeky Ghetsis, you may as well have the Jirachi so that you can actually get into it. So I like having a 1-1 split. We have the ability to reuse Shaymin because of AZ and 4 Super Scoop Ups, so even though it's just one, we often get multiple uses of setup to help us keep drawing, and we all know why Shaymin's good for us. So that will round out the Pokemon, pretty simple stuff. Onto the items. Comp Search is amazing, of course, gets us into anything we want. DCE is a big target for us. It's the only card in the deck that can search out DCE, so there we are. We're playing one Enhanced Hammer. This is mainly, once again, like I say, we have to have options against vespiquen because it's so painful for Seismitoad, so if we're unable to get the knockout, you know, normally we need to have Muscle Band Laser and a combination of bats just to knock out vespiquen, so it's really awkward for us. There are times when we're going to need to Enhanced Hammer that stuff away to maybe cross our fingers and buy ourselves a turn, maybe let the laser damage stack up or something like that. So Enhanced Hammer's good in there for that. It's also good against Giratina. You know how I was saying it's kind of awkward, but if we can use Xerosic and Enhanced Hammer on the same turn to completely wipe the Giratina of its energy, then it's straight back in our favour. We're playing 4 Hypnotoxic. It's the main way that we can increase our output, so pretty important. We have 1 Level Ball, great for the early bat lines, great for Jirachi as well, so it's a consistency booster, and we can also search out Dedenne, so I really like having the extra ball search in here. We have 1 Super Rod. We only have 3 basic energy, so you can recycle these if we're against something that's going to start denying our energy, like Sableye Garb, I guess. So that's nice. Normally it's to recover bat lines because these can get targeted early. Definitely in like mirror matches as well. People will try and target your Zubats while they're low HP because they're easy prizes. So being able to recycle and get use out of the bats is nice. Oftentimes we have to Sycamore pieces away just to get our setup because we need to find DC and stuff. So Super Rod gives us that opportunity to go really aggressive. And later on we find Super Rod and recycle. 4 Super Scoop Up. I've already mentioned it a couple of times. We're going to try and heal off Seismitoads and then basically go into a free retreater like one of our bat pieces. They all have free retreat as long as we have abilities online. So we can Super Scoop Up a damaged Toad, go into a free retreater and then replay the DC, replay the Muscle Band and get straight back into the active position. It's a really nice loop. Obviously as well it works on the bats for increased amounts of sneaky and surprise bites. Sometimes it can be basically if we flip heads we get an additional 50 damage based on if we have another Golbat waiting around and then another Zubat, so good potential there, and it's great for respamming Jirachi and Shaymin as well for getting us into more supporters and into more cards. Maxing out Ultra Ball, again consistency. We have these 2 cards that we keep looking for early game to get into exactly what we need, and we need to keep finding these bats for output as well, pretty normal stuff. For VS Seeker to respam our one-off supporters. We play a few in here, so pretty important to have VS Seeker. It's a staple in most decks. We're playing 1 Ghetsis. Ghetsis is seeing more and more play and expanded because of the reliance decks have on trainers. Definitely anything with an Archie or Maxi engine, highly reliant on items. So because we can't punch on the first turn, we're going to try and Ghetsis to make sure that they can't do much if they are going second. So that's really great for us. Good for mirror matches as well, because they can't put stuff like Muscle Band down, they can't start hammering away, they can't hit us with headringers or lasers. It's going to really help us out, and sometimes your opponent will just dead draw, like maybe they were relying on Ultra Ball to get them into Shaymin for more cards. Ghetsis denies that, so really nice for us to have that. We have one Colress. We normally fill up our bench quite quickly, definitely with 5 Ball Search cards and 16 total Pokemon. We can fill up the bench quite quickly, and Colress often gets more value than a Sycamore would do, and it's good shuffle draw so that we don't have to dump everything. So it's a nice option to have. One Lysandre, good for so many reasons. I don't think we really need 2 in here, because the bats can target the bench anyway, so we do sort of have access to them whenever we really need to finish stuff off. But it does give us a stalling option in stuff like mirror matches, definitely if they can't develop Floatstone because we've Quaking Punch too early. So it's nice to sort of stall on Hoopers or Keldeo EXs themselves and take easy prizes that way. So it's nice in mirror. It's nice just to finish off stuff in general. So I do like it, obviously, but you don't really need to, I don't think, because of the bat drops that we can put on people. We do have the 2N, pretty standard. Some shuffle draw early game isn't bad, and obviously it's going to help us recover in the late game. Definitely against stuff like Archiestoise, if they've had the luxury of going first and hit that Blastoise, we're going to have to find Ns quite quickly to try and slow them down a little bit, whilst we find Mewtwo and Dedenne to try and respond as quickly as possible. I think I actually missed this card, AZ. You're guaranteed Super Scoop Up. For all the reasons I mentioned, Super Scoop Up was good. AZ is also good. Slightly weaker when healing Toad, because you get rid of DCE. But there are still times when the denial is important enough for you to still sacrifice DCE in the process. We are playing one Xerosic. Again, it's one of these things for mirror. You can get headringers off your active Toad. You can get DCEs off their Seismitoad to try and break the lock for a turn, maybe. Really crossing your fingers, I guess. But whenever Toad is able to break the opponent's lock, they're really just going to accelerate way ahead in the matchup, because they get to use stuff like lasers, hammers, put their muscle bands on, protect them from headringer, even super scoop ups, picking up all that damage, because it takes a while for Toads to kill each other with just punches. So Xerosic's a really nice tech in here, and just in general, taking off special energy from like Yveltals can be nice. Just a whole bunch of different reasons, really. For stadiums, we're playing a 2-2 split. 2 Silent Lab. This is one of these cards, just like Ghetsis, where in certain matchups you're really wanting to find this early. Definitely if you're up against vespiquen Vileplume, it's a deck that's sort of started to pop up and expanded, and it's really reliant on Shaymin. It normally plays just 3 Sycamore and 4 Shaymin, so finding the Silent Lab is going to make it very awkward for them. Normally they do play 4 Forest, but you know, if they don't have it at the time, Silent Lab can really cripple them, which is amazing. Similarly, again, I'm going to mention these Archie and Maxi decks. Oftentimes, Archiestoise only plays 1 stadium, and Yveltal players normally play no more than 2 Virbanks, if they are playing the Maxi build, just because it clunks up. So if you can find Silent Lab, stop them getting like Jirachi into their Archie or their Maxi, stop them getting into Shaymin to get them more cards, to try and sort out their hands. We're going to make it as awkward for them as possible, so Silent Lab is really good for stopping development, really, just in general. We then have 2 Virbanks. It's the main way we increase our laser damage, so still really important to have these here. So it's actually nice having a 2-2 split, because sometimes you can alter your own poison math. Sometimes you're doing too much with poison. You'd rather them die coming back into your turn or something like that. So you might sometimes bounce your own Virbank with a Silent Lab just to help maths sort of fix itself, so that's an option for you. We are playing 2 muscle bands. I don't think we need any more, because we have so many other ways of increasing our output, the bats and the lasers mainly, so I think 2 is the right number. We're playing 4 DCE, of course, Quaking Punch, X-Ball, Sky Return even, I guess. These are all the things we're using DCE for. And then the 3 Water Energy. It's going to help us retreat out of Jirachi, Emolga, and Shaymin if we happen to start with them, which is awkward, but makes it less awkward than a DCE getting picked off or whatever, so that's pretty handy. Obviously it opens up the door for Grenade Hammer, like I was saying earlier, and it's recoverable with Super Rods, so it's something to be aware of, that we can try and get these extra energy back so that we get more punches against stuff like Sableye Garb, because that can be an awkward matchup, but normally we can get there even when we lose all of our energy. If we just keep cycling bats, oftentimes we can still win that matchup, so that's one of the reasons why Xerosic's in here. You have to Xerosic Garbodor, then do a ton of bat drops to deal with Garbodor, and then you're pretty much set with Super Scoop Ups and AZ to try and cycle through and just kill Sableyes that way, and Bunnelbees. So there we are, that is the deck, and we will find some games shortly. And an Absol coin, nice, I've not seen that before. They call the flip and we win one, nice. So we get to go first. And we start Seismitoad. Our opponent has mulliganed, which is cool for us. We'll hold Mewtwo for now. And we see dark stuff, lasers. Okay. Floatstone as well, so it might be a Zoroark build. Parallel City. Double Compressor, probably a Maxi build then as well. So it might be YVG. YZG, I mean. So we'll draw for these two mulligans. It's going to only help us out. And it means we can put down another Zubat, which is lovely. And we do indeed see Yveltal EX, so that is getting instantly lasered. And we're going to look for Jirachi here off of this level ball, so that we can use Ghetsis if possible. And there is Jirachi. Let's do some counts. We have all of our bats. We have Dedenne. That's important to know. Let's do some DCE counting. Don't know what that blank card is. I don't know why they do blank cards. Ghetsis is in here. So all looks good. Let's drop the Jirachi, go for Stellar Guidance. And I think because we have DC turn 1, like, we have the luxury of using Ghetsis. Sometimes people use Ghetsis hoping to draw loads of cards. We're just sort of, because we already have the setup, we don't care. We're only getting 2 cards. He's got a hand full of supporters, so he might have to N us. If our opponent's going for the N, do I want to play DCE here? I think I do. My opponent is lolling at their own hand. Because N is most likely what they're going to be playing, because they don't want to get rid of all the Sycamores. I'll attach the DCE and pass it over. Not the best of Ghetsises, but because we had such a nice hand, I think it was fine to do it. So they top deck the Darkrai and do proceed to N us, so I think it was right to attach the DCE. We see Keldeo EX. Hopefully they don't find Floatstone. Although they do have Dark Cloaks, so I mean, like, it's kind of fine anyway. Oh, they have Hooper? Okay. So it's probably just a straight Yveltal. We don't normally see Archie builds of Hoopers, because they just don't have the space. Not Archie, I mean Maxi. So Toad and Shaymin. So it looks like just a straight Yveltal. We do see Virbank, so I assume we're getting lasered. If not, that's a terrible play from them. Because they've increased their own poison damage. You see DCE onto Keldeo? That's absolutely fine. And they pass. They don't even rush in retreat. So that was terrible play from our opponent. Really bad. Really, really bad. So we're just going to Xerosic that DCE. Not give them that out. And just punch. I don't see any reason not to. Like, it's not like I'm in threat of anything. Once we get Quicking Punch, they don't have Dark Patch, so they can't really surprise us with damage. So That was really weird play. No reason for them to put the stadium into play if they didn't have their own laser to fire. And they didn't even go for the rush in, so yeah, it really didn't make sense for me. So if this Yveltal does stay, I mean, they can always rush in, but then Keldeo is stuck. He'd have to spend, or she would have to spend another DCE. So if it stays in, we can try and kill it with bat damage, and then try to laser something else. Or at least get a punch on something else. Really nice that our opponent has spent DCE early. That was really bad from them. Like, Dark Energy on Keldeo does the job. Like, more permanently than DCE would. So it really made no sense to do that attachment. Yeah, our opponent just times out. Again, people just not dealing with Toad early. So we're getting free wins. 50 points, so we'll get some random thing. Yeah, some Fortress. Just what I wanted. Let's find a game. So we'll have one more. We've had 2 early wins with Toad. 1 scoop, well, double scoop really. But that was just bad play from our opponent really. The second game. Just terrible play. Unfortunately, the quality of PTCGO players, you know, it varies highly. So we're up against Radical Scyther. Nice name. Nice moustache as well. We're flipping a coin. We're going for heads. And we win the flip again. Lovely. So we will indeed be going first. And we lead with Zubat, which is not terrible. And we do have Silent Lab, so if we... Whoa, Trapinch. It's a Flygon deck. Flygon Dusknoir? Probably? So I got to be careful about Jirachi and Shaymining. But we need to Jirachi here. So... I'm worried about Silent Lab as well. Like, I would put it down, but then the Zubat doesn't have free retreat, so I think I'm just gonna get Sycamore. We don't sort of have the luxury of going for a Ghetsis here, because our hand is pretty shoddy. And I'm happy Sycamoring this stuff away. Dedenne's useless. Shaymin is not going to get us enough cards. So we'll go for that. We do find Toad and DCE, so can't complain. Unfortunately, we have no real like play next turn in terms of what we can do from our hand, unless I super scoop up heads Jirachi here. So I guess I hold it. Is it worth laser? Yes, it is. So it threatens this Trapinch. I'm not going to attach because I'm not sure what really to expect from this, so I think we're just going to pass here. Yeah, seems fine to me. So we're threatening this Trapinch. Let's see what they can come up with. Oh, okay, it's a Selgor. A Selgor with Flygon. We see Floatstone onto Trapinch so it can move out of the active and goes for a fairly weak Colress of 4. We don't play Keldeo in here. We do just have Super Scoop Ups and AZ though, so we should be able to break the lock a couple of times. If our opponent establishes it. I mean, they had a weak Colress of 3, so... we got Lysandre as well. We can't, like, kill the Shelmet. We could kill the Trapinch, though. Is it worth spending Lysandre just for Trapinch? Is the question. Because it has Floatstone, it probably is. Because if he does start developing these guys, like, he can't retreat out of the Trapinch anyway. So I think it is worth it. Much easier to kill it now than any other time. Again, I have the debate if I want to Super Scoop Up now. I don't think that sort of deck has the space for Ghetsis, so I'm not going to play around it. We'll just kill the Trapinch. Oh, it has weakness? I did not know that. Gotta check your cards, boys. Was it wasted Lysandre? Probably not, because the one with the Floatstone was more of the threat, so... So our opponent confidently goes into Shelmet, but then just passes. We hit VS Seeker. Do I want to vespiquen Lysandre here? Not Lysandre. Maybe Lysandre. It puts a lot more pressure on, and then we can go for bats for win next turn. Like Ultra Ball 1 bat, go for the Super Scoop Up play. Kinda greedy, but like, even though that was like our only supporter, we have the 50-50 of getting Jirachi for another supporter anyway. I'm gonna hold the energy because it could be a good Ultra Ball target. And just in case they want to like Lysandre up Jirachi or something pathetic like that. So once again, our opponent has the option of a card. Let's see what they can do with it. We see a Lysandre. There we go. See, gotta be aware of these things, guys. So okay. So the if we don't Super Scoop Up, we are spending a DCE, but we have the potential of winning this turn. Okay, let's go for that. So, may as well still get rid of the water, because the DC will go anyway. So, if we hit heads on Super Scoop Up, we win. And we still have the option of ending to get into another bat, so heads for game. Tails, never lucky. So we'll just attach the Jirachi and end. Like, his hand size, like, he has nothing, but I think going for game here is worth it, you know? If we just end the game now. See, Laser was an out as well, and Muscle Band, so many outs there. Laser time. Let's just show him how many ways we had game. Kapow. Classic BM plays. Yeah, there we go. So, really, this deck has won really quick, easy games. We had a Ghetsis turn 1 in one of the games, but it wasn't too relevant. But yeah, that's the deck. Toad doing Toad things, and it's pretty consistent at doing what it does. So there we are, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and it's been Joe from OmniPoke. Tell me what you think about the deck in the comment section below, and maybe some extra additions. I didn't really talk about any additions to this deck. Just because I think it's pretty set in stone what you want to do with this deck. There's not actually much wiggle room for extra techs. Something like Jirachi, Flare Grunt, just a handful of ideas, but really it's pretty set in stone. Maybe play around with the counts of cards, like your bat line. Maybe you want more Zubat, more Golbat if you're up against more vespiquen players, and you can skimp out on Crobats overall, but 3-3-3 is pretty standard. Depending on your area, you might want to up the Zubat and Golbat, like I was saying, just to deal with matchups. But I'm pretty happy with the 3-3-3 at the moment. And supporter-wise, I wouldn't change much. The Silent Labs, they've been kind of hit and miss for me. I could see you cutting them for other cards. I think the Water Energy is still needed, just for like retreating, like we saw in the last game. The Enhanced Hammer as well, that's a tech card, really for Vespi more than anything else. So that could be cut for consistency. Or like more bats if you feel like that's a better route to go down. So there we are, guys. Like I say, hope you enjoyed. It's been Joe, and I'll see you guys next time.